I think I'm less okay with someone just going to the grocery store, buying pomegranates and just like gluing them on their tree than I am like if you did have some that fell off the tree and you put them back, that feels more right. But I don't know. It's a gray area. It's not as bad as one of the other Phoenix graft type things, but it feels like it's in that camp. Um,
Oh man, I just got this vision of like I'm displaying my pomegranate at the expo, and then someone's
yeah,
like, "Oh, just run to Vaughn's really quick," or Albertsons,
yeah,
and I don't know if you guys have
yeah,
those. Run to Whole Foods
yeah,
and grab a couple
yeah,
pomegranates to throw on there.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like that. That feels like it's cheating. Like,
to baby trees. Bonsai. 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 Close enough.
The Black Pondo Podcast.
Bonsai, 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 bonsai,
Bonsai.
yeah.
The Black Pondo Podcast.
I'm really good with whatever, but I'm trying to make it very informal, free flowing, and fun. So
cool. That all sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, let's stick with deciduous since that's my comfort zone. But
Oh, for sure.
within that context, we're good. If you start drilling me on pine questions, it might get a little rusty. But
That would be hilarious if I did that. I'm like, okay, we're only talking conifer today.
yeah, that would be
No.
kind of fun.
Yeah, how was the gym, man?
It was good. All the freaking resolutioners are starting to show up, so January rough there, but no, it was good. Had to work off all the Christmas fun that we had yesterday, but yeah,
That's
do you
great.
go to the gym or do you work out at home?
I do both. So I'm really into jujitsu. Been doing that since about 2018, and
Nice.
that really gives me drive to want to get in shape. And so I just have a Planet Fitness membership, which there's a lot of things about Planet Fitness that I absolutely hate. I like that they're just everywhere, So
That's nice. Yeah.
I travel a lot for work, and it's great to just be able to go there. And I think it's like so inexpensive. But then I also have a home gym.
Nice. Yeah, I use 24, which I'm sure is very similar. But for travel, it kind of sucks because there's a lot of 24-hour on the West Coast. It's not too much on all of my routes, so I might need to switch it up. But
Yeah, I travel a lot as well, and there's Planet Fitness everywhere now. They are all over the place. They're not they're not all created equal. Like some of them are really nice and clean, and then some of them are kind of janky and old.
Yeah.
But it gets the job done for me, so I'm okay with it.
Good.
But
good.
Yeah, Andrew, you're looking lean, man. You're looking good.
Thank you.
It's awesome to see. I think health is so important. Health is wealth, I always say.
It is. Yeah. I've been focused a lot on that this year, so that's been fun to see some results, see some progress. So, yeah, it's like my daily meditation. Go to the gym in the morning, work out for a couple hours. That's like if I don't do that, then the rest of my day is just kind of thrown off. So, yeah, been
That's
enjoying
fantastic. What kind of working out do you do?
I'm mostly doing strength training or resistance training, so mostly with weights. I'll do cardio on my rest days, but it's mostly just trying to build some muscle, lose some fat. And I've done a lot of different things over the years, and that's been like this is like the one thing that seems to be working the best for that. Plus, I've like radically changed my diet too, so that's been helping. Basically,
For sure.
only eating meat and vegetables and fruit, nothing out of a box or a can or a bottle.
Love it.
Like, those two things have like radically sped up the process.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I think. Well, first off, for me personally, I know like I was really into running for a long time, but I didn't really start losing a lot of body weight until I started lifting weights, which is kind of counterintuitive, but that's kind of how it worked for me. And then so much of it is diet. Like, if you eat really clean, you're just going to start losing body fat, which is great. So
yeah. Yeah, I found like I resisted doing weight stuff for like years, and I just kind of picked it up really hardcore in the last like 6 months, and that's when I was like, oh crap, this is working really, really well. Um,
That's all. That's fantastic.
yeah,
Yeah, you're looking good, man. Looking
thank
good.
you,
Looking
thank you,
lean.
thank you. Right back at you.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, well, so I guess you know, like I'm a big fan of everything that you've been doing. You've been doing a fantastic job with the YouTube channel, your Instagram, Bonsai Wire, everything that you do. I've been following along, so I kind of have like a bunch of follow up questions that I'm curious about.
Yeah, yeah, let's
But
do it.
then, awesome. But then I was also kind of just wanting to talk to you about what the future of Rakuyo Bonsai looks like, if you have plans for next year, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Maybe could we jump into those things first, or
yeah, let's do that. Yeah, yeah. Holidays are
okay,
on New Year's coming up fast, so yeah, let's talk about that.
for sure, awesome. Well, yeah, I guess for uh, now's a great time to kind of reflect on things, reflect on the year, and determine what you want to do differently. And I was curious, what does 2025 look like for you? I guess like personally and professionally.
Yeah, yeah. Slimming down, both both as we talked about earlier, myself personally, but also on the trees. I've I my garden is about a quarter acre, which isn't huge, but for not having any staff and just being me, it's like it feels pretty huge. And so with a quarter acre, it was great the first few years because I could fill it with all of these stumps that I had and keep on top of things pretty well. But now all those stumps have a lot more branches than they used to. Um, and so they're not just taking up more space, but the garden's getting exponentially that I'm getting more and more branches, which just means more and more work. And so, slimming down the collection to kind of fit to kind of stay within my workload has been a focus of mine. So, I sold 20 trees at the expo. I've sold about 10 or 15 trees, kind of privately here. So it's trying to get the garden kind of a little bit more manageable. Still, I want it to be full. I'm not like getting down to 10 trees, but trying to get it a little bit more manageable.
Nice. What does the selection criteria look like? How do you determine which trees you're getting rid of?
Yeah, quality and variety are my two big things. So and kind of passion as well. So quality wise, I'm more likely to part with the things that are a lower quality than a higher quality. I think everybody's like that in their downsizing phase. And then also variety. So it's like if this is the only oak that I have, I'm probably not going to sell it. Versus if I have 30 Japanese maples, okay, maybe I can shave off a few of those. And then passion. There's just some species that I've early on I felt like I had to have everything because I was teaching everything. And now that I have several years under my belt, it's like, okay, I really don't like crepe myrtle. Maybe I don't need a crepe myrtle. I learned a lot about it by having it, and I can work on it in all my students' collections, but I don't need to have one myself. It's just not for me. So those three things have kind of guided my kind of downsizing process.
Is crepe myrtle one that you don't actually like, or did you just throw that out there as an example?
I don't actually like it. It's probably just a bias from the all the badly pruned ones that I see in Texas. It's like the tree that you see in Texas that's just kind of butchered. And so there's probably a little bit of that, but it just as if I was living down south and that was the only deciduous tree I could have, I'd probably have a few of them. But I don't know. Just I find that I'm more drawn to trees that live in colder climates. I like the toughness that those trees have and the sustainability in the branches.
For sure. Makes total sense. Yeah, I guess crepe myrtle's an interesting one. Like you kind of have to either go for nice ramification or the flowers, right? Like you can't really have both. Is that what you
Yeah,
found, or?
yeah. Just like a pomegranate, they'll flower on the tip of the extension, and so if you want flowers, you really have to let them run. And so like showing a crepe myrtle and having flowers is not really conducive. You can have it in your garden, especially if you're thickening some branches and let it bust out. But yeah, it's not great kind of for that reason. I do think once the trees mature and all of the growth is not like 12 inches long, but like 3 inches long, I think that would be a lot more proportional. But it'd take a pretty refined tree to kind of get there. But it is a beautiful. I like the bark on the tree a lot. I would love to see people in the South, which I don't see, but I would love to see people treat them like Stordias, just kind of graceful, elegant trees, not massive trunks. I had one that was just a big volcano, and it was like a cool, impressive tree with a lot of presence. And I still really like that tree. It's just not something I'm, super passionate for.
Yeah. Does crepe myrtle not do well where you live, like horticulturally?
It does great. It doesn't do as well as Texas. I had a client down there who had one from the same batch that I had, and these huge, massive field-grown trunks, and it was one of the very, very, very few trees that outgrew Portland. And anything that just loves the heat is going to do better outside of Portland than here in Portland. I mean, for Japanese maples and just any tree that you'll see in a kokufu book, I haven't seen faster growth than my zip code. But if it's like a ficus or any of the trees that tolerate and kind of thrive in that kind of heat, they'll do better elsewhere. So one of the few species that actually grew faster down there.
Makes sense. Any other species that maybe you started appreciating and that appreciation has dwindled a bit?
Oh gosh, species that is dwindling. There's a lot of native species that, I'll play with it for a few years and then it gets less interesting as alder is one. I used to, we have a lot of alders here in the Pacific Northwest. I would collect a few and I think they make fine bonsai, but there's not one thing that's special about it. I'll make a nice deciduous silhouette, fractal pattern, whatever. But other than that, there's not one thing that makes it really special. It doesn't get fall color. The leaves just turn from green to brown and fall off. And it develops well enough, but then the leaves get fungus from all the local trees. So it's one that I thought would be, you can develop it pretty fast, but it's just not something that I'm, dying to have more of in the garden.
Makes sense. Nice. Any professional goals that you have in 2025 or anything that you'd like to accomplish?
Yeah. Professional goals. Let's see. Other than less trees, I'm driving out to the national show, so that's going to be a fun trip.
Wow. Dang. Okay.
Yeah.
How far is that? How many days or hours?
It's probably, if I'm being smart, it's probably 4 days, but 3 days if I'm pushing it. So that should be fun. I'm not sure how many more national shows there's going to be. Bill's getting older, and so I kind of want to just drive out and support that. And he's really supportive of our expo here on the West Coast, so kind of want to return the favor that way. And
shout out to Bill.
Yeah, Bill's
he's a madman.
Yeah, he's like the most hardcore bonsai person of us all. He's
he really is.
Yeah, he's impressive.
Driving out. So he's drove out. Sorry to interrupt you. He's drove out twice now, right? To the Pacific Bonsai Expo.
Yeah. So he's like a champ. So yeah, I want to kind of just. I've never had a tree in the national show. I've been to almost every national show. Last year I couldn't go because I had some conflict, but I've been to almost every national show, and I haven't ever had a tree in one. So I was like, okay, some of my trees are starting to get some branches now. So I'm like, okay, it's time. So that should be fun. Let's see what else is going on in 2025. Excited in a couple weeks here to go to Gafuten for the 50th anniversary. So kicking off 2025 with a Japan trip, which will be special.
Gafuten, is that the Shohin show?
Yeah.
I forget.
So it's probably the best show in Japan after Kokufu. It's the top Shohin exhibition, and they're having their 50th anniversary this year. So super excited to kind of see that. I think Daisaku is telling me there's gonna be some special trees there for the show to celebrate the anniversary. So and then a year later, just about in 2026, is the 100th anniversary of Kokufu. So planning to go to that too. So lots of Japan trips in the future. Yeah, I want to kind of slim down the garden a little bit. My garden's still super young. It's 4 years from being a big dirt pile, so it's still super fresh. All the landscaping I've done is still little baby plants. So I want to continue kind of evolving the garden in that way, refining the trees that are in the collection, just kind of making the garden nicer over time. So kind of incremental improvements there.
100%. Yeah, I'm same way. I think I didn't realize how much building a garden is like building a bonsai tree, and it's just like incremental steps. It's the whole Kaizen kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of fun to see it evolve over time. And it's like, I don't know if you've had this experience, but like you think you have it all planned out in your head, like year one, and then like year two comes around and then everything changes. And then every year it's just this constant kind of evolution.
Yes.
So that's it's fun to go through.
Yeah. On that vein, is there anything in your garden? I know that I have found a few things that I am not happy with, that the way that I built my bonsai garden, just certain things. Mm-hmm. Anything that you wish you would have, or you would have done differently, being able to, and I'm just throwing all these questions out on the spot, but
yeah. I would have definitely run power and water further into the garden. I guess I can still do that. It's not that hard, but it would have been easier before all the gravel and benches and everything was there. And I wouldn't have done this differently, but I want to rebuild my greenhouse sometime in the future. Right now, it just looks like your typical, nursery kind of greenhouse, and I kind of want to make it look nice in the future. That's probably not for the next 5 years, but just something on my radar. That's something I feel like I can step up and improve on. Other than that, I'm pretty fortunate on how the garden was laid out and everything. I'm not too upset about any of that. I did really take my time to build it and piece through it, and so it's been fun to kind of see it evolve and change that way.
Very cool. Any thoughts on what that greenhouse might look like in the future?
I guess the simple way of saying it is right now it looks cheap and I want it to look expensive. I'm not going to pay a lot of money. I'll probably be building it all myself. But, like less plastic, more wood. I'm not going to get too crazy, but right now it just looks like very much DIY, like greenhouse that you're going to see anywhere in here in the Oregon Valley or Willamette Valley. And I want it to look just kind of more intentional.
For sure.
Not sure what that looks
Fantastic.
like. But
yeah,
we'll see.
Cool. And then I guess I'm curious, the next, let's say 20 years, what does Rakuyo N look like, or any thoughts or ideas? And
yeah. Next 20 years, Rakuyo will right now I have a lot of trees still, as we talked about, and I'm happy with that.
How many do you have?
Probably 120, what I would call like significant bonsai, like something like future expo trees. And then on top of that, maybe another 20 or 30 kind of projects in development, probably another 30 shohin. I have 200 Japanese beech kind of pre-bonsai waiting to get potted up. So I have too many trees. But, I think 20 years from now, what the garden will look like, obviously I think just the garden itself will have a lot more patina, which I'll enjoy kind of seeing that naturally develop. But I do want to downsize the trees to more of a museum type of feeling. So probably ending somewhere between 30 and 40 trees of just, instead of having 20, great Japanese maples, having like 2 or 3 just baller ones, having 2 or 3 just baller beech. So I know that's going to be a hard process to get to, but that is kind of the ultimate goal, is to have Rakuyo, when I'm getting older and my back is getting weaker, have it be more like Luis Vallejo's museum in Spain, that type of feeling.
That's a good goal right there. Love his museum. It is absolutely stunning and very magnificent.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm slowly working towards, but baby steps to get there.
Absolutely. Cool.
I was just on Ryan's podcast a week or so ago, and one of the things that I was fantasizing with about him or with him was the having, I'm kind of jealous of you, Jeremiah, because you get to have, a pretty small collection, relative, and just any high level hobbyist. I was like, oh man, I would love to have just 30 trees. And for some reason, being a professional, it's like I feel like I need to have more, and I still do. Like I need the repetition of having 20 Japanese maples to be a good Japanese maple teacher. I need that repetition of having 15 hornbeams to speak confidently about hornbeams. But I don't think I'm going to need that in 15, 20 years. And so that's where Rakuyo's headed.
Makes total sense. Fantastic. One question I had for you, this is one that I was just thinking about the other day, is, in your opinion, is there a GOAT of deciduous bonsai?
There's
like
two
greatest of all time.
Yeah. There's 3 people that I really look up to, and I'm visiting hopefully 2 of these people in January. But Fuyuan, of course, the deciduous bonsai village. Fuyuan, Mr. Takayama-san, that is just such a great garden. Many of the trees are multi-generational and built really slowly. So I really, really like Fuyuan. And that's what I would say is like the older school kind of goat. Newer school would probably be Ebihara or Oishi. Both Ebihara and Oishi developed trees, kokufu trees from air layers in a single lifetime. And I think deciduous in general gets a bad rap. I keep hearing this. I'm not sure where it comes from, but someone's spewing it. Is that, deciduous trees take 50, 60, 70 years to look amazing. And I think if you're doing the right thing at the right time, you can do a lot in 15, 20 years. And Oishi and Ebihara kind of proved that. They got things that they air layered into kokufu and won kokufu prizes in like a 25-year span. And so those are 2 of like the newer guys. I mean, they're both older, and I'm not even sure Ebihara has trees anymore. But those are like the more recent people who kind of in a single lifetime, built very, very amazing trees in a short kind of period.
Solid. I have been obsessed. I've just obsessed on a big kick for Japanese beech, and in particular, all of Oishi's stuff. Like, I've been trying to track down every article that he's written in Kinbon, and just looking online to see all his before and after pictures or anything that I can find. I don't know what it is recently, but his, in particular, one of the beeches that he air layered that he won a Kokufu prize. I know the tree. It's like
the raft style one.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, raft style. I don't think it gets better than that, really. And I've just been obsessed with that tree in particular. I want to create one of those. I absolutely love Japanese beech, and I think that his work is just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, he's amazing. He that tree in particular is weird because it's quite an anomaly. So I do a lot of studying of kokufu. Like, I'm looking at all the kokufu books on my bookshelf, and I look at them pretty regularly. And one of my students and I were building a database called Kokufu Stats, where like we're inputting let's say beech, for example. We're inputting all of the beech trees that we see, and we're just putting in data like formal upright, blue pot, just trying to take all these different variables, the different sizes, and in doing that, I feel like I have a really good grasp of the trends in Japan, at least in the last 50 years of kokofu. And with beech, it's interesting because that tree that you're talking about, that raft style, there's not really too many other ones like it in the last 40 years of kokofu. It's quite an anomaly. It won a kokofu prize. It's an amazing tree, but it's not like your standard beech DNA. So it's kind of fun to see stuff like that. That's kind of out of the box. I think Japan gets a bad rap a lot of the time for, everything looking the same. And I think
cookie cutter.
Yeah. I hate that phrase. Because there's, I don't know, people will say, oh, in Japan they do this. And really for every time someone says that, I'm like, well, I can give you 20 examples where they don't do that. And so that's, but the trend is that they make beech look different than that amazing raft that you and I like from Oishi. So it's interesting to see and notice some of those things. That's a really cool tree.
Oh, it's extraordinary. It's really made me want to do some Japanese beech air layering, and to try and get some raft type features, or not just air layer like a piece of the trunk, but like have multiple branches coming off. I would like to create something like that.
Yeah, I think multiple trunk beech are very underrated, and I think that's something that I really want to have more of here in the garden. I love beech. Probably after Japanese maple, it's my favorite species. I probably have more beech here in the garden than anywhere else in North America. I have probably 20 beech trees that are kind of significant trees, and then, like I said, I have those 200 beech seedlings that are going to be future sales trees and forests and whatnot. I love Japanese maple. That's been my first passion and will always be kind of a passion. If you put a bullet to my head or a gun to my head and said you have to only have one species for bonsai, I'd probably be Japanese maple. But beech is kind of a very, very, very close second. It's a really special tree.
Solid.
I was down in California.
So that's a great question. I don't know. So I have one.
Okay.
And I didn't get it too long ago. It's an air layer.
Okay.
Peter T air layered a Japanese beech, and I was lucky enough to get one of the air layers that he created. But
Nice.
I've only had it now for 5 months or so. So I think it's too early for me to give a firm answer there.
Yeah.
But it's definitely one that I'm hoping does well. Hornbeam does phenomenal down here. So
Okay.
I don't know if they're, I know they're not the same thing, but I'm hoping that Japanese beech does well. So I'll report back to you in a few years.
Have you tried European beech?
No, I haven't tried any types of beech.
Okay.
I'm just jumping into it.
Yeah. European might have a better chance in a less ideal climate. They're known as being a lot tougher. In fact, if anyone's listening and wants to kind of get into beech, European beech is the most friendly. It's similar to like how Korean hornbeam is to Japanese hornbeam. In Japan, they almost never use Japanese hornbeam because it's just not as sustainable or reliable. The one that they did use, Carpinus laxiflora, which a lot of the old guys like Saburo Kato would use, they tend to shed branches if you're not doing things right. And so they love Korean hornbeam because, one, you could get these amazing trunks from Korea, and two, it's just a really sustainable tree. It's going to hold on to branches pretty predictably. And European beech is really similar. It's like if you're going to get into beech, it's like a very good versus like a Japanese beech. If you kind of are 2 hours late to a watering, you could have half the branches die. Versus a European beech, it could get fully wilted and then come right back like nothing happened. So it's just a lot tougher.
Okay. Sweet. So, I'll try it.
Yeah.
One kind of marker or people that I look at is Jonas, because I think we have fairly similar climates.
Okay.
We're both about the same distance from the ocean. He's not too
Yeah.
far north of me, so we're both in very mild climates. Like it just doesn't get that hot in the summer, doesn't get that cold in the winter.
Yeah.
And so I know he has some beech, and it seems like he's been really successful with them. I have to talk to him about it, but
Yeah, he has European beech. He has like that beautiful forest that was in the first expo is a European beech. Last time I was down there, that was the only beech in his garden, and that seems to do fine in the Bay Area. I think the Bay Area used to have a lot of Japanese beech, like back in like the BIB days, and I don't see any of those around anymore. So that could have just been care or other things, not necessarily a zip code, but yeah, European have that kind of trend of being more tolerant of all these different variables we throw at them.
got it. All right. Well, I am going to get some European beech.
Yeah. No, they're a good one.
Yeah.
They're a good one.
I had a few questions for you about beech, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Curious. So I know that the leaves don't fall off as easily as other species of deciduous tree. Mm-hmm. I was just curious, have you ever not removed them? And do they they got to fall off eventually, right? Or do you have issues if you don't remove them? I've just always seen people remove them.
Yeah. So that's called marcescence. And a marcescent leaf is when the petiole does not form an abscission layer at the base of that petiole to kind of sever it from the tree in the fall. They will fall off in the spring, however. So if you don't do anything on your beech right around kind of repotting time, when your buds start swelling, that's when they tend to shed their leaves. I've never seen a tree that's kind of kept their leaves kind of as the new leaves are growing. So they do kind of drop them off. But if you came out to the garden right now, every single beech tree would have all of its leaves on there, just because I haven't gotten to them yet in the rotation of my work. And I actually do really enjoy leaving the leaves on because it's, if you come to my garden right now, I have like 10 conifers or less, hundreds of deciduous, and to have something that doesn't look like a silhouette is kind of nice variety. So the two beech benches that I have are like, pretty sexy looking because they have all those nice bronze leaves on them, and just kind of different than the rest of the garden. But I will remove the leaves, one, because I want to edit the structure. Two, because if we get a winter storm, my trees are way more ramified than a beech tree in nature. And so if we get an ice storm or snow or ice kind of collects and builds on those branches, then that can cause some ramification to break. But mostly just for aesthetics, to take all the leaves off, do any editing of the winter silhouette that needs to be done. So I will go ahead and remove them. There's a couple other species that are marcescent. Oaks, certain types of oaks can be marcescent, and hornbeams can actually be marcescent. Sometimes on Korean hornbeams, the leaves will stay on, or definitely other types of hornbeams. American hornbeam it's much more marcescent. But yeah, I tend to remove the leaves. It's interesting, if you look at old kokofu books, a lot of the older books would actually show the trees in the leaf because the older shows were more about art and less about competition than the newer shows are. And you're probably not going to win a competitive prize if you have leaves on a tree. And so, yeah, it's a very nice seasonal feeling to have those bronze leaves. Sometimes what they would do on those old trees in a show is they would take half of the leaves off so you can still get a glimpse of the structure, but you still have that nice seasonal feeling. But it's kind of a fun thing about beech. There's actually an evolutionary hypothesis on why they keep the bronze leaves. So beech in nature is a dominant tree. It will take over the forest. It's one of the few species of any thing on this planet that will take over a continent, much like us as humans. But beech, before humans took over the entire continent of Europe, basically, all the way from the Mediterranean up to the Baltic and northern kind of ocean up there, even up into Scandinavia. And so beech is a very dominant tree in the forest, and they one of the reasons it gets so dominant, meaning it just kills off all the competition and creates these big monocultures, is that one of the theories is the leaves shedding in the spring will kill off all the competition. So when the saplings of all the other trees that fell in the fall start growing, then it gets a big bunch of beech mulch from all the marcescent leaves falling off in the spring. And it just kind of kills off all the competition and allows beech to kind of continue dominating. So who knows if that's true, but that's one of the fun theories.
That totally makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you were saying the general trend in the kokufu is they used to show with the leaves, and then more and more so they're removing the leaves.
Yeah, almost every kokufu book in the last 10 years will have most of or all of the leaves removed. Unless you have a tree that actually doesn't look too good, then actually leaving some of the leaves on can help camouflage some less ideal branch work. Or it maybe someone's just kind of nostalgic about that older kind of feeling. But yeah,
Totally.
most of the trees lately are shown without leaves.
Got it. Nice. I was curious in terms of just growth management throughout the year with beech. Do you treat different varieties any differently, like European to American to Japanese, or are they pretty much the same? Do you treat them the same?
They're pretty similar. So I have all three species in my garden, good examples of all three, and they all get treated exactly the same. And that's one of the nice things about Beeches is that the work, if you're studying, Japanese bonsai or reading, the Kimbon or whatever, the work that you see apply on those Japanese beech equally applies to European beech and American beech as well. The main difference between the three beech trees are the leaves. So if you strip all the leaves off, even someone who spends a lot of time thinking about beech like I do would have a very hard time telling what's what species wise. So the leaf is like the main signifier. Everything else is very, very similar in its kind of structure.
Yeah. I'd imagine you probably don't defoliate beech. Do you do any leaf cutting?
I do a lot of leaf cutting. And I'll cut, 70-80% of the leaf off on my more refined trees throughout the year. So, there's a technique that I've wanted to try that I've never been willing to put one of my trees through it, but I might just get a garden center tree for the sake of experiment. There's a technique where they, instead of pinching in the spring, and when you brought up defoliating, it made me think of this. You take the entire bud of the beech off, like pluck the entire bud off right when it's swelling, and then kind of force it to grow new bud right then and there. I wouldn't recommend it for something that's already a bonsai, but if you have a really aggressive young tree that you're trying to slow down and build some twigs on, it's a technique that I've never tried, but a lot of people have told me about it. It's one I'm curious about exploring.
Oh, interesting. Do you typically pinch your beech?
I pinch if I want to get fine twigs. If I'm trying to thicken anything up, I don't pinch them. I let them run. And I actually have found that beech can thicken up quite strongly. I've grown trunks 5-6 inches in diameter in just a few years. So in a bonsai pot. So I found it's a great species to grow. Just like maple, it grows really fast when you do the right things. But it's but yeah, I pinch the things that look more like bonsai. If I'm in fine twig development, I do quite a bit of pinching.
Yeah. Solid. I just wanted
There's even a variation on the pinching. So they say Oishi wrote a famous article about beech that he kind of illustrates this. But they say if it's a really, really refined tree, you pinch it as that bud has broken, but it still looks like a bud. Like it's just starting to open. You can't see the individual leaves yet, but that bud is kind of bursting open. Oishi will take that bud and kind of break half of it off without even knowing where he's pinching per se. Versus a younger tree that they're just starting to slow down, they might let it leaf out so that it's still a very early pinch, but you can see the individual leaves, and then you kind of count 1 or 2 or 3 and then pinch at that point. So there's even a variation of pinching beech depending on kind of where the tree is in development.
Ah, very interesting. Sweet. Well, I feel like Oishi would be the man to learn about it from. So,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to hopefully see that one tree that we were talking about in person and pick his brain
oh,
about beach.
that is so rad. Jonas went there back in the day, right? He has pictures on his blog, I think.
He did. Yeah, yeah.
Quite a few
So that
years ago now, I think.
yeah, so he's going to go with me in January. So we're hoping to maybe even film some content with him. We'll see what his appetite is for that. But it would be fun to just pick his brain a little bit about some of those things. Jonas tells a famous story about Oishi when Jonas went to Oishi's garden. You know, Oishi said, "How old are you?" And Jonas said, "I don't know, whatever age he was." And he's like, and he didn't really care. And then he turned around and he said, "I grew all of these trees from an air layer." And so start some air layers when you get home. Yeah, it was trying to break the stigma of, you can't grow bonsai nicely by yourself. He's like, I grew every single one of these trees, start some air layers. So it's just kind of a funny story. You could have been 60 years old. You could have been 20 years old. He would have told you the same thing.
Totally, totally. Wanted to give you props. I was just looking on your Instagram account, and one forest that I particularly love is your Japanese beech forest. And you have pictures
Mhm.
from 2014, 2017, and then current. And it's just so beautiful, and it's come such a long way. Props to you
Thank
on
you.
that one.
Yeah, those old photos are kind of embarrassing. I didn't know what I was doing back then, but I guess it makes the current photo more fun. Yeah, that's a fun tree, and I grew that tree from little pencil size things, like literally stuff the diameter of a pencil, the height of a pencil, and now it'd probably be in like the extra large category in the expo because of how big it is now. And that was all in a shallow bonsai pot, and so it's 14 years now with that tree, and it's come a really long way. It still has quite a bit of work to go, but yeah, that's one that I'm really fond of.
Ah, great work, great work. One thing I was impressed about is just like where you found so many beech. I feel like they're kind of hard to come by, especially in the U.S.
Japanese beech are impossible. So I've been trying to get ever since I had that forest. I've liked beech, and I've wanted to get more Japanese beech, and I made that forest, I don't know, back in 2008. And so ever since then, I've been trying to find more beech. And for the first few years, I was probably looking very casually. But the last 7 or 8 years, I've been looking very intensely, making probably hundreds of phone calls, sending out hundreds of emails, trying to find Japanese beech just to get basic seedling kind of stuff. And nobody had either seed or seedlings. So it was like impossible to get a hold of. I finally got very, very lucky and came across a batch of about 180 seedlings. And so I
No
bought
way.
every,
Okay.
yeah. And unfortunately, that well is dried up. But I bought every single one of them, and I'm getting 3 emails a week on if I want to sell them, and I don't at the moment. But it's taken a very, very long time to get them, and I feel very lucky to have them, and I want to let them go. I don't want to sell them as seedlings because I want them to have a chance to turn into legitimate bonsai first, and I want to kind of get them on that path before I part with them. But I felt like they were, I could flip them for a lot of money, but I felt like they were too rare, too kind of special to just, flip and make a quick buck.
Yeah.
So
It's so interesting. Like it seems like European beech are fairly easy to find, or easier to find at least in the
I could, get,
States.
I could get you
Like,
3,000 seedlings right now.
yeah.
I
Why
can make a
why
phone
is
call.
that though? I
Um,
don't get it.
so Japanese beech will only produce seed when the tree is pretty old. Um,
Okay.
all beech are like that, but Japanese beech, for maturity to produce seed, are the oldest by
Oh.
about 20 years. So just getting like if I planted one of my little beech, it would take about 60 to 80 years for it to be mature enough to make seed. That's why as bonsai you hardly ever see them with like beech nuts on them. In fact, I've never seen that in a bonsai pot because I think the trees just simply aren't old enough. But Yeah, it's interesting. So they have these mast years too. So they won't produce seed every year like an oak tree will. They will only produce seed once every 5 to 8 years. So let's say
Oh,
you have one that is 80 years old, then you get to collect beech nuts off of it once every 5 to 8 years, something like that. So it's that's why we don't see more versus European beech. The other reason I think we see a lot of European beech is like I said, it's a lot more tolerant than Japanese beech. So if you're a nursery or a garden center and you're trying to sell these things, plenty of European beech is you're going to have a lot less returns on that tree, and it's also a lot more kind of cultivated. So in Japan, they never really found an interest to make a lot of different types of beech like they did maples and really domesticate it that way. But in Europe, they did that with beech. And so in the nursery industry, there's, I probably have 7 different cultivars of European beech, but in the nursery industry, they probably have 20 to 30 at least. And some really cool varieties. There's like a lace leaf variety called Mercedes. That's a pretty cool tree. Aspinifolia is another one that's still a kind of a thin leaf. It's kind of like Siryu, like a thin leaf Japanese maple. So there's a lot of beautiful weeping beech varieties, copper beech varieties. So there's the European beech has a lot more kind of versatility just in the regular plant world, and so I think that's why nurseries and garden centers and growers kind of focus on it.
got it. Interesting. Does the standard European beech, is that a bit hardier than the cultivars of European beech?
Yeah, in general, I think everything as its regular kind of greenleaf plant is always slightly a bit, quite a bit more kind of hardy. We see that with Japanese maples. So like regular greenleaf maple, like I don't really have to protect at all. But I have a really nice Shishigashira Japanese maple. That's one that whenever temperatures drop, that's one that I always kind of protect just because I've always heard from my friends who work, at Isley Nursery in the nursery industry, that, those cultivars are a lot more fragile with the cold.
Cool. It's interesting. So I've been following your collecting journey a bit, which it has been really fun to follow.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you started collecting cottonwoods, and that is a species that like I didn't realize, but there's actually a ton around the Central Coast where I live as well.
Yeah.
It's probably a different subspecies or slightly different, but they grow in the riverbeds down here, and there's just tons of them all over the place. Just something that I've been thinking about going after, and kind of like something that I didn't necessarily think about, but now it's kind of on my mind, and I kind of want to go check to see if I can find any cool trunks.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I like about it. So let me tell you about those. Number one, I can find it. I can't find a beech tree growing here in the woods, so it's local, like you said. Another thing that I like about it is that it's incredibly easy to collect. Meaning you don't really need. I'm convinced you don't need roots to bring it home. It's kind of like when you hear people collecting redwoods, they just do these saw cuts and bring them home. I still try and dig up root, but I'm not coming home with hardly any fine root. I'm coming home with like 4 or 5, big, 3-4 inch saw cuts of a root that I'll make underground, and I've never had one not make it. So it's kind of bulletproof for collecting, which I like. I'm able to find, I can get them pretty high elevation, and so they're growing in streams and creeks, really high elevation. And so I'm able to find trunks that are kind of tortured and beat up a little bit. It's the closest thing that I've found here to that resembles something like what my friend Maria in Croatia is doing. It has a rough kind of bark, so I kind of like that variety when all the trees that I love, like beech and Japanese maple, have smooth bark. So it's a really resilient plant. A funny thing too is it's really sustainable. So if I've gone back, I didn't go collecting this year, but I did go scouting, And I've gone back to where I collected the last, several trees that I collected, and there's a new tree growing in that
Sucker
place.
growth.
Yeah.
That totally
So,
makes sense.
so it's kind of crazy for all those reasons. And so I've been enjoying it for that. I'm not convinced that it's going to make a good bonsai yet. And I think
Too early to tell.
Too early to tell. Yeah, actually, my one of my students, Maciek, and I just did a podcast on cottonwoods, and so we kind of dive deep into our experiences there. But I like it as a plant so far. It gets better color than alders, so at least it has fall color. It can check off at least one box to kind of give it something that's special. The leaf seems to reduce really well. I think it's going to be a lot more like birch, where unless you're 100% on top of it, you're going to lose branches. So if you miss a watering, you're going to lose branches. If you let the suckers run, you're going to lose branches. If anything gets shaded out for even a small amount of time, it's going to lose a branch. But if you can really stay on top of it, my students call them sport bonsai, where they're just a lot more labor intensive. If you can stay on top of it, then I think it's going to work, but yeah, jury's still out.
Makes sense. Yeah, down here it's great. We don't get all that great fall color just because we don't get much of a winter down here.
Yeah.
But the cottonwood in particular has a really beautiful like golden yellow in the fall, and so that's cool. At first I wasn't sure what they were until I did some Googling to figure it out, and you started talking about them. Almost remind me of like aspen or something, the way the leaves kind of like blow in the wind. I think that's kind of a cool look as well.
Yeah, and they're just like aspen, they're a poplar genus, so very closely related. And the other thing that I think is cool about them is I think it's, assuming it works well for bonsai, I think it's going to be incredibly versatile. Meaning it's a plant that's not just going to grow well in my backyard, but I can sell it to someone who lives in Boise or Salt Lake or Spokane or down in California. Like, I think it's going to be a tree that is like very versatile, that almost anybody can have in most zip codes. So I like that about it. I if I could find them, I would be collecting vine maples all day long. But I drive them down and sell them at the expo, and they probably all die because they like the kind of temperate rainforest that we have up here. So I think the cottonwood is going to be a pretty versatile plant, and I think it's something that a lot of people could have access to all over the West. It really all over North America, because it's everywhere.
Totally. Very cool, man. Well, you got some really nice trunks, and I'm very excited to follow along on that journey.
Yeah. I was so tied up with the expo this year that I couldn't go grab some more, but I'm very eager to expand the cottonwood kind of game a little bit. And I kind of want to stop calling them cottonwoods, because like it has such a bad connotation. Like people, when I say cottonwood, they probably think of like allergies, and here they have all that little cottony stuff that falls down. Funnily enough, I was doing some research, and most people actually don't have a cottonwood allergy. They have an allergy to something else that
they blame it on cottonwood.
They blame it. But the ones that I'm collecting, the other common name is balsam poplar. So I think I'm going to rebrand them as balsam poplars.
That's pretty awesome. I like it.
Yeah. But
solid.
Yeah, it's been a fun tree to kind of play with. The other interesting thing is, I don't know how all the other ones work, but the cottonwood that we have here, the balsam poplar, is the leaf when you collect it is kind of looks like a beech. Like it's very it's kind of, how would you describe that? Like just very beech-like, like kind of like a ovate kind of leaf. And then as the tree matures, it gets more like that kind of arrowhead looking kind of shape, where it's much wider at the base, and that real cottonwood kind of feeling. I haven't seen it do it yet in a bonsai pot, but the trees here, I've definitely noticed that. So it has kind of different leaf morphology depending on kind of what it's doing. It's really interesting that way.
Are you collecting them in the early spring, like late winter, early spring time period, or have you collected them several different times?
I collect them in the fall
In the
typically.
fall, okay.
So yeah, so after they've kind of turned color and shed their leaves, that's my ideal time to collect them. I think you could collect them in spring. The one issue with collecting them in spring is spring at the elevation that I'm collecting them is summer at my house. And so it's, you know, depending on if we have a heat wave, it could shock the plant. I think for cottonwood, it wouldn't really matter. So because I missed my fall window this year, I'm going to try it this coming spring. But all of the deciduous collecting that I do is generally in the fall. And yeah.
Nice.
So.
Cool. Fantastic. I think some of that depends on just where you live and what your climate is like. Like it's so mild here. Like my repotting season like could be very lengthy. Like I can repot in like December, January, February, whereas most people they push
Yeah.
it way further into the new year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in general, collecting deciduous, like dormant season, like either like late fall all the way up to kind of when the tree before it leaves out. That's kind of what I've heard from most deciduous collectors, like Maria and Andrea over in Croatia. They do all their collecting in the winter. You want to kind of when the tree's dormant, that's like the prime opportunity to kind of dig it. So yeah, you could probably dig them down where you are, November, December, January, February. You probably have a pretty long season.
Sweet. I just need more free time, and then I could go get out there a little more.
I know.
Same for you. Yeah. I think it's so cool though, man, because like what we need more of in this country is people going out, experimenting, collecting different types of trees that might work for bonsai, and just championing. I don't know if that's a word. Basically, Bob Shymaning the species. I think he really kind of like put redwood on the map. Bob Shyman did. I mean, they collected them beforehand, but he really just collected a ton, and then he's selling them, and then now redwood is like a thing that people utilize within bonsai, and I think that we need more of that. So it's so cool to hear about new varieties of trees that we're collecting, and I'm stoked to hear that you're experimenting with cottonwoods.
Yeah, I think experimenting is fun. I would caution anyone who's listening, like, don't have 400 young ones in your yard until we kind of check the box on, okay, this is going to work really well. But I think for my approach to experimenting has always been, look, if I find an amazing trunk somewhere, it's worth it. Like, it doesn't matter if it's going to be a terrible bonsai or not. Like, I find an amazing trunk, it's worth it. If I don't have that amazing trunk, I'm probably less likely to like devote a lot of resources to something, because it's, for one, I just lack space in the garden. But two, it's if like all of the young stuff that I have, like the beech, or I'm starting a batch of DeSojo Cascades. It's like if I'm going to invest a lot of resources and energy into something, like I want the payoff to be there. So I kind of feel like in like growing natives from scratch, unless you see like really good examples down the road, like one you could point to is red maple. Like Michael Hagedorn has an amazing red maple that was in the expo. And so I wouldn't hesitate to start a batch of red maples, but another type of maple that's maybe untested, unproven, I'd be kind of hesitant to start. If that makes sense.
100%. That's very logical. I'm growing a few natives, but usually they're of a species which Japan uses on a regular basis. So, for example, like I'm growing American hornbeam, and I'm growing the Wisconsin red variety, which gets beautiful fall color. And one idea that your dad actually gave me was American persimmon. But now I only have 3 of these, and I know. Yeah, on Bonsai Wire, I've heard you guys talk about growing in batches. So I'm growing like very small batches, kind of as an experimentation. But 100%, I would agree with you. Like, don't have a million tiny trees that you're growing out if they're still experimental. Like, you want to make sure that your investment is going to pay off.
Yeah. I think when you look at Japan, like they have poplar in Japan, and like it's like the tree exists. I was talking to Dasaku about it. But it's you never see it as a bonsai, and so that's like always a giant question mark. I think if you're playing with natives, choosing parallels to traditional trees like American beech, American hornbeam, different types of maples, those are great because we have really good roadmaps for those. Cottonwood, we're kind of inventing the roadmap as we go, and so and
For
not even
sure.
lead anywhere, right? So it's yeah, that's kind of the fun, exciting thing about it. But I think if you're experimenting with it, you have to be really open about that because I think you have to be able to say, okay, this isn't working. One of the best examples from Japan is actually Japanese flowering cherry. It's the second most famous plant to come out of Japan after Japanese maple. It's tree known all around the world. And how can we never see flowering cherries as a bonsai? Well, I can tell you because they suck.
Mm.
They're like one of the least reliable trees in a bonsai pot. And I have a few, but they're constantly fighting me. And so I think too many people have been fought for too many generations on those plants in a bonsai pot. It's not that you'll never see one, but it's very, very rare. And I think for good reason.
Super intelligent points. 100%. One thing I wanted to chat about briefly was your video regarding growing ume. Well, I guess
Yeah.
while we're on the subject of growing young
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So so basically, I think that one of the main points that you made was that that in the US, if we're starting ume from seed cutting, air layer, that we're not going to necessarily have like a kokufu prize winning level tree within 20, 30 years. Whereas like
Yeah.
other types of trees like Japanese maple, maybe beech, we could have like kokufu prize winning, which is the highest level trees.
Right.
And I guess initially I was a little bit offended by that
Yeah.
because I am growing ume, right?
Yep.
From seed and cutting.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really good point, and it's an interesting one because I guess to me it's all about showing the age on the trunk, whereas like Japanese maple, and now depending on the variety of maple that you get, or beech, it's going to look like an old tree in 30 years. Whereas ume, if you put a 30-year-old tree next to a 100-year-old tree, there's going to be a distinct differential between the bark qualities. And so I
Yeah.
think it's a really good point. I still think that we should be growing ume. It's a good idea for us to grow ume, but it's more of like I think in 30 years I could have a badass ume, but
Yeah.
it's still not going to look like a 100-year-old tree. However, I think it's one of those things that we can pass on to the next generation, and it will be badass, like even more badass, with the next generation. So interesting points there. I don't know if you had any
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah. No, that was the one video that I did that I'm unsure about. Like, I still to this day question, like, should I take that down? Because I don't think I did a good job articulating my point enough. I think you kind of nailed it though. Like, basically, like if you want to grow ume, you have to be prepared for a tremendous amount of heartache. Because let's say you plant a field of ume and you do all this work to collect all these varieties, which are really hard to find and source, and you plant that field, and then you go to make your first chop. Probably 3/4 of them are going to die back down to the soil, in my experience, and then regrow from suckers. I worked at Telperion Farms on the ume field several times, and they were just out of everything they had, just like the least predictable, most frustrating plant to grow. That all being said, and the points of my video being said, it's one of my favorite plants. Like, I love ume. I have, looking out at my driveway, I have 20 of them planted along the driveway. So it's a tree that I love. It's just, when we look at what they use for bonsai in Japan, it either has one of two criteria or sometimes two of two criteria. It's culturally significant, or it works really well for bonsai. Something like a beech works really well for bonsai. I can't think of a direct cultural reason that they grow beech, but it works really well for bonsai. It's a beautiful tree. Ume doesn't work very well for bonsai, but it's highly cultural because it's tied in with the New Year's celebrations, and it's in all the poems and paintings, and it's just kind of deeply ingrained into Japanese culture. And so my point with that video was mostly, look, if you want ume like the ones in the Kokufu books, like the roadmap of growing them to getting them to look like that isn't really there. The roadmap was, hey, we just found some cool ume that were growing in this family's, porch for the last 150 years, and some bonsai guy bought it, and now it's in the Kokufu. And so they're finding these kind of found objects, similar to Yamadori, and they're kind of decorating the trunks. And I think with grafting, that's a lot easier than working with a young plant. So I don't want to discourage anybody from growing ume, because I think it's a great plant, but I don't think it's a great plant for bonsai, and I just want people to know that going in. And that was kind of the point of the video. And I think what I don't think I did in the video, but I should have, is give a good viable alternative. So there's a type of cherry, actually, so still prunus, but cherry rather than apricot. It's a Kojo no Mai. It's a kind of a dwarf contorted cherry. They've been floating around the bonsai circles here in the U.S. for a little bit. But Kojo no Mai is a amazing type of prunus. So number one, it flowers way more reliably and predictably than ume. It still gets bark, not as good bark as ume, but I've never had it lose a branch for any reason whatsoever. Versus anyone who knows ume knows, like, it's not going to make itself pretty by itself. Like, you have to put a lot of labor and hours into it. And so, yeah, that video is pretty controversial even for me, because I don't know about that, but.
Very complex points that you were trying to articulate. I think you did a good job. I mean,
I didn't. It's
interesting.
Yeah. If you were offended, I didn't do it well, because I think a lot of people were, and that means I didn't communicate the point clearly. Maybe another good comparison is like ponderosa pine. Like, sure, you can grow ponderosa pines from seed, but you're probably better off just going to see Randy or the backcountry.
There you go. Okay. That makes total sense.
That's kind of how I think about it. It's like not the most easy plant to work with. Doesn't have the best kind of foliage features, very similar to ume. But if you find a really cool trunk, it's worth it. And that's
got it.
My challenge with ume.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think I've had maybe 7 or so species or varieties of ume now. Yeah. And I think it's definitely variety specific. So like those eBay umes that we got, I could never get that thing. Those are like the worst, so it's definitely a spectrum. And I have
I think the difference with those eBay umes are those, I believe, were more fruiting ones. So like a variety or genetic that you would get, like if you were growing ume for fruit production, versus like ornamental flowering ones like Kobai and a lot of the famous kind of ume that we see in the Kokufu. And I think the ones that are kind of selected for the flowers rather than the fruit have better longevity and sustainability. Still not
totally
anything else, but better than those field ume that we had.
For sure. Yeah, I also wonder if some of it is climate specific. Like I know ume are quite susceptible to fungal issues. And so I wonder if maybe in the Pacific Northwest, because it's so rainy and cloudy all the time, maybe there's more fungal things going on. Because I have a couple varieties that I found now, which are like very standard varieties, which seem to be I'm definitely not going to say bulletproof, because long term, I feel like ume, you just can't say that about ume. However,
it's
they're
not
much more hardy. Yeah, and they will create a branch, and that branch will stay, and I can develop and continue working on the branch. So I do think it's very variety specific. I wonder if it's also where you live. Ume do well in certain areas. They don't do well in other areas. However, you have some ume that look really nice, and they look like they're growing really heartily at your place. So
yeah, I've never seen them get fungus here in my yard. I've seen the dead wood get fungus, like a mushroom growing out of the dead wood, but not actually the tree or the foliage itself. And they do grow well here. I mean, we have tons of prunus trees all over, but it's just like it's tough to like walk over to the ume bench and like just see like I don't know, just branchums dying randomly. Like it's by far the most random, unpredictable tree of any traditional species I've ever worked with.
Mm.
And so it's just like like you go over the beech bench and everything's good, and then you go over the ume bench and it's like Mad Max over there. Like, um, and so it's just kind of a frustrating species. And
Mad
it's
Max.
so extra frustrating because I love it so much. Like that bark with those flowers, it's like so great. But I don't know. It's just like the reason that ume grafting is such a thing, and you don't have to graft deciduous trees unless they just are terrible for bonsai, and that's why we have to graft ume so much. Is just sometimes we defoliate them and they come back. Sometimes we defoliate them and they don't. Like it's a very 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 hard tree to read, and I don't think anyone's really kind of mastered it, which means I think the tree is just not predictable.
Totally makes sense. You know, there is so at Aichien they started a bunch of ume from seed like 100 years ago. The first generation owner of Aichien started quite a few seedlings, and there's one tree which is a very large, like light pink colored ume, and it had
Mm-hmm.
almost no deadwood. Back when I went there in 2015, there was like almost no deadwood on the tree, but phenomenal bark. And so, in my mind, I always had this vision of growing ume with no deadwood at all. And I didn't know if that was really possible or not, but that tree at Aichien kind of showed me, oh, maybe it is possible. However, in speaking with some of the apprentices there more recently, I heard that a couple of the branches may have died and the tree had to be redesigned. And so now there are some deadwood features on the ume. So I kind of feel like ume is just a tree where you are kind of ever evolving it, and deadwood
Yeah,
is inevitable. There will be deadwood features on an ume, and
yeah,
it's
that's
just
actually
something that you kind of have to redesign.
Yeah, and I think that's actually something most people get wrong with young ume is they take a 10-year-old plant and they want to put all this deadwood on it. I'm like, trust me, just like wait a few years, the branch is going to die, you're going to get some deadwood. like I think most of the special deadwood that we see on ume from Kokofu is not necessarily intentional, but happenstance. And yeah, they might have like something died and then they clean it up and make it look better. But I don't think, they were taking 5-year-old trees and carving shari in them and whatnot. In a way, very different than junipers, which you can actually do that and get really nice growth deformities that make the tree look more exceptional. So I think that's a mistake a lot of people make with young ume is they have a 20-year-old tree and, okay, let's carve it, right? Because I see this old one in Japan with amazing bark and all this deadwood, and it's like, my tree doesn't even have bark yet, but let's start cutting it up. That's one good way to kill an ume pretty fast is carve up half of the tree when it's young. But
Totally.
I don't know.
That's funny. Talking about ume alternatives, one thing that I've always kind of fantasized about, there's a lot of old almond orchards around here, like abandoned
Mm-hmm.
almond orchards, and they have really pretty flowers as well.
Yeah.
I've always thought if I had some extra time, and for a while I was actually like straight up throwing ads on Craigslist and stuff, but I didn't get too
Yep.
far with it. But if you could
Yeah.
find like an old abandoned, beat up, twisty, funky almond, I think that could be cool. Or you could even graft ume onto it if you wanted.
That would be dope as hell. And honestly, that's a way better roadmap. Like if people were investing all of their energy there, I think, then if you want ume, you just buy one of those and graft ume branches on. And then you have the nice, unique trunk that gives you the age. And then you can just put your Kobai or whatever variety you like onto that. And now you have a Kokofu quality ume, Like I think that's a much better pathway than the young stuff. But I'm not against the young stuff, but I just want people to know there's going to be some heartache along the way. I don't know someone who's grown ume for more than 10 years who recommends it.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Fair,
So.
fair. Okay. And so in that video, was your point, was some of it also doing with like the age of the bark? Like, so in 30
Yeah,
years, you can't, or was that kind of a minor point, would you say, on the video
yeah.
more so?
I think the point was more, look, in Japan, the roadmap for Kokufu Ume is very different than what I'm seeing most people focus on here in the U.S. But I do think you're totally right about bark. Like if you're trying to get a tree that looks good in your lifetime, if that's like the explicit goal, then you're not going to get a expo winning ume in your lifetime. I don't think. If you were going to do that, you would probably have to accelerate growth in the ground, which then would make the tree less predictable. But in a container, I'm not sure you're going to get there in a short amount of time.
Makes sense. Totally. Cool. Very nice.
Hopefully that resolves. I know I'm throwing a lot of shade at Ume, and I think all of it's deserved because it is a really frustrating tree. But I do want to and I didn't make the point enough in that video. Like, I do love this plant. I just it's even more frustrating to me that I love it so much, and it's such a letdown in so many different ways of training. And yeah, like if everyone who's growing ume was growing something like Kojo no Mai, like I think we'd have a lot more happy people and flowering trees that have survived. The Kojo no Mai is one that if you like ume, you should definitely look at that because you'll get incredible flowers every single year. You'll never have a branch die if you treat it well. Like it's just a really reliable thing. But grow some ume too. Prove me wrong.
Very nice. Well, I am growing some ume. We'll see how they turn out. I kind of think of it more as like just a fun project. Want to see where I can get, and I'm really excited to pass them on to the next generation. And I feel like we're not going to get really badass ume unless we either import them or we grow them, and then the next generation will kind of like reap the ultimate benefits.
100%. Yeah. And if there's a plant that you care about, like you should be growing it. Like it's if you like, don't rely on someone else to like make it happen, because chances are it won't. Like if you love ume, then prove me wrong, grow lots of ume, be the ume person. Like, I'm not saying you, just like anyone who's listening, because like be the change you want to see. If you want to see more ume, then it's going to require a lot of people to have them. But there are alternatives out there, or alternative approaches, like what you were saying. Like find a cool almond orchard, get a trunk that's an expo trunk, graft some branches, and in 5-10 years you can have a tree that's quite a bit farther along.
For sure. Cool. Hey Andrew, you mind if we take a quick break? We are back. Yeah, so ume got me thinking about deadwood within deciduous bonsai. I guess I'm curious, like what species you think deadwood is acceptable when it comes to deciduous. One in particular, as I got my first one recently. I'm not sure if you have any. I don't know if I've seen you post, but do you have any pomegranates in your collection?
I had some young ones at a point, and I moved them along. I'm on the hunt for a nice old one, but until I come across that, I have them in students' collections and not my own.
Got it. I was wondering if they did well in the Pacific Northwest. I know down here they do pretty good, actually.
Yeah, they do. They do great up here. There's I had the Nekijan variety, the kind of twisted one that we've seen the Kokufu. And that did amazingly well up here, but the trunk was a little smaller than I wanted, and so I moved those along. But yeah, they do really, really well. I'm not sure deadwood on those would make sense because most of those are grown rather than found. But I think the orchard ones from California, the deadwood makes sense. I was just at Ryan's the other day, and he had a really beautiful pomegranate that has, it's basically all deadwood, very little living. And it's really cool. So I think, orchard trees, I think, make a lot of sense. These trees are kind of tortured from their years of servitude in the field and kind of harsh conditions. That's why I think fruit trees like ume and crabapple look good with deadwood. So I'm not opposed to deadwood on deciduous trees, but I want it to feel right and feel kind of appropriate. And I think like I was saying with ume, I think that where deadwood gets very distasteful for me is when it's forced, especially at too young of an age, taking a 10, 15, 20-year-old tree and trying to make it look like a 100 or 200-year-old tree. I think very rarely is that ever successful. And so if you're collecting, an old vine maple that's been tortured because it's been growing on the lava flow and it has a nice, interesting hollow base, I think that feels right. But taking a vine maple from a garden center and trying to do that, it takes quite a long time for you to torture it and then kind of look good, in my opinion. So that's kind of my approach with deciduous deadwood. And with deciduous deadwood, I think hollows and shari make way more sense than gin, because gin or a dead branch is very temporary in the time scale. Like a dead branch on an oak tree, we had a windstorm here last night, so all the dead branches just shedded themselves. They all fell off. So it's like a very small glimpse of time when you see it, not like a juniper, which can have deadwood for decades or even hundreds of years. So, yeah, just kind of different in that regard.
Nice. Very well articulated. Great points. And I'm right there with you. I think that if you try and force deadwood on a young deciduous tree, it doesn't look right. I also think certain species, like it just feels wrong to me, like a Japanese maple. I'm not too into deadwood.
Yeah.
Whereas an oak, I could see it more so. Like, yeah. I don't know if that's just bias or if that's right or not, but that's kind of how I feel.
No, I feel similar, although I do have one Japanese maple. I really like variety, and so I have one Japanese maple. It's like probably 120-year-old tree collected out of someone's front yard in Portland, and it's been a bonsai for like 50 years before it was in the ground for forever. And that has a big shari down the trunk, but it feels right because you can actually you can feel the age coming off the tree. So it's definitely weird and obscure. It's the only Japanese maple I have with deadwood. It's like a tough contrast to see that. But for some reason, because the tree's so old, it doesn't look out of place,
For sure. Nice. Yeah. So I got this pomegranate. I have a few twisted pomegranate, but they're younger stock. One of them I got from Ed Clark. I'm going to guess it might be like 10 years old or something like that. But yeah, I purchased one that I really like it. However, I was on the fence about purchasing it or not. And basically like there's some holes essentially in it. Like some of the trunk has kind of rotted, although the outer area is very twisted. And to me, it looks like, I'm going to text you a picture of it.
Oh, nice.
Or a video of it.
Yeah, I'd love to see.
But there's some hollows. But I just thought it was so cool and so old that I picked it up. But I'm not sure because I don't love deadwood necessarily on these types of trees, and ultimately it's really kind of a negative thing. But I also wonder, like with this pomegranate, is this just kind of the arc, and or does the tree's life have an arc to it, and the maybe like I'm on the other side of the arc where it was perfect and now it's kind of, hopefully there's no sound on that video that I just sent you.
Can you hear it come across?
Just slightly, but
oh gosh, sorry. I have my my AirPods in that mute everything, so it's like I'm on like my airplane mode or whatever.
Gotcha.
That's a really cool tree. On that tree in particular, the deadwood doesn't feel out of place. It I think it contributes to that gnarly kind of feeling, and I think it's past the point of, just from a quick glance, it's kind of past the point of return from where you could.
For sure. Yeah, there's no there's no going back.
yeah, but that's an incredible tree. That's tree. And that's how I like to think about deadwood is like, if it feels right, then then it's fine. If it feels forced or out of place, then that's where I start to have issues with it. So
Totally. Makes sense. Question for you. Do
yeah.
you think it is too artificial if I were to collect a pomegranate from one of my other trees and then put it on that tree for a show? Like, are you down with that, or you think that's cheating?
There were some trees in the expo that I think did that, or at least one of them. I haven't decided. I haven't really come up with an opinion about that. For some reason, it feels like you're slightly in the Phoenix Graft kind of camp of trying to trick people. And it feels maybe cheating to a degree because like not you in particular, but just like who does that maybe didn't have the technique to actually get the fruit on the tree themselves, fertilize the tree properly, maintain it well enough so that it did that naturally. I think I'm less okay with someone just going to the grocery store, buying pomegranates and just like gluing them on their tree than I am like if you did have some that fell off the tree and you put them back, that feels more right. But I don't know. It's a gray area. It's not as bad as one of the other Phoenix Graft type things, but it feels like it's in that camp,
Oh man, I just got this vision of like I'm displaying my pomegranate at the expo, and then someone's like, "Oh, just run to Vaughn's really quick or Albertsons," and I don't know if you guys have those. Run to Whole Foods and grab a couple of pomegranates to throw on there.
Like that feels like it's cheating, like
for sure.
And they were just so big too, like so the scale wasn't right. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Do
the
you
Phoenix Graft. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Go ahead. Phoenix Graft. Oh
well, slight tangent, but like the thing that I think is 100% cheating that I absolutely hate is when people do the wire trees. To me, that's the Phoenix Graft of deciduous. So it's like when you like take a wire cage and you like wrap 400 trident seedlings around it. To me, that is the 100% equivalent to like finding
the Phoenix Graft.
Yeah, that's the
Makes
deciduous
sense.
equivalent. I hate those. They also look terrible. Like even 20, 30, 40 years later, like they look like they were made that way. They look way worse than an actual Phoenix Graft does, in my opinion. So
yeah, I guess I'm fine if people want to do a Phoenix Grafts. I'm cool with it, but I would be upset if they tried to pass it as like not a Phoenix Graft. I think that's the like hard no, not cool for me.
Yeah. And I think the thing where it gets tricky, going back to pomegranates or just any fruiting tree in a show, I think the thing that's tricky is, in my opinion, a poor judge will see fruit and reward a tree maybe higher versus, to me, I'm more looking, just in my own opinion, I'm looking at the quality of the trunk and the branches and all the work that's been done. And the fruit or flowers or whatever can be a nice X factor. Like if like two trees look great and one of them's in like great fall color or one of them has like a full set of fruit, like it can like be like a tiebreaker. But I much more care about the quality of the tree. And I think for a judge who is maybe less experienced, that could very much influence them. If you just go to Costco and glue on a bunch of fake pomegranates on your tree, not fake pomegranates, but fake pomegranates to your tree. I think, I don't know. I'm not against it. I'm just not excited about it. Maybe this is
for sure. It is gray. It's very gray.
Yeah. How do you feel about it? I mean, I haven't thought too much about it yet.
Yeah, I guarantee you it's going down even in Japan. Like it's happening.
Oh yeah.
I think. Yeah. I guess if you're gonna do it, you got to do it well, and you got to hide it. I mean, by hide it, I mean don't just have like a clear piece of wire or something where you can absolutely tell that it's been attached. So do it well. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of think that if you can't tell, then it's okay. Although it's funny because like I'm not down with Phoenix Crafts like in a show.
Yeah,
Or no,
yeah.
I'm down with Phoenix Crafts in a show. I'm not down with someone trying to pass it as real. But like, but
Yeah.
then I guess maybe that kind of goes against what I was saying about it's okay if you can't tell.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's well executed, I'd be much more, I don't know, warm to the idea, you know?
Yeah. I do like both pomegranate trees and say like Chinese quince. I really like to see the fruit on them. I think it's cool. Like if you have ramification and fruit, it's very nice. Looks
Yeah.
great.
It's like a nice X factor that can tip it over the edge and make it special. So
For sure. For sure.
I agree there.
Cool. What with deciduous trees, one thing that I kind of get stuck on is there's like 3 pot colors that I like. And I want to get out of it, but I'm having a difficult time getting out of it. So I like blue pots, I like green pots, and I like cream pots. And it's hard for me to branch out past that. What do you think?
Yeah, you're going to see 90% of my garden, if not more, is going to be those 3 colors. So I'm with you, but maybe not intentionally with you. Like I didn't, a lot of my pots are, you know, I get like a lot of, you know, if I'm working with a potter and they like make a pot that has a crack in it they can't sell, that's a pot that I end up getting more often than not. So, you know, I do get a lot of secondhand kind of pots for the garden. And, you know, I'm kind of just limited by what I get. But I do want more color in the garden. You know, it's hard for me. Like when you specialize in something, when you come to Rakuyo and you see 100 deciduous trees, you know, big deciduous trees, like they're all probably going to be in ovals. So how can we make this not boring, right? And they're all probably going to be in that 3 color range that you said. So how do we spice it up a little bit so that it's not just blue oval, cream oval, green oval, like repeat. And so I've been more interested in different colors. One of the trees I had at the expo, my Coralopsis, I had it in a purple pot, which I thought was fun because the yellow flowers that it gets in the spring, yellow and purple, are kind of direct complementary colors. So for like 1.5 weeks a year, that tree looks like super exceptional, like color wise. So I am trying to spice it up a little bit. But I think, you know, I think maybe a bigger question is a lot of people ask, is there a right color for a tree? And the answer is 100% no. There can be better matches, but there's not like one right thing. It's not like I have a Japanese maple, so the answer is blank, cream, or whatever you want to say. I think it's nice when you have an X factor like fall color or a fruit or a flower. It's nice to play off complementary colors. So one of the reasons the Christmas colors work so well since it's the holiday season is red and green are direct complementary colors. And so if you have something with a red berry, like a Ilex serrata, then a green pot can actually really nicely complement that. Stewardia with that orange kind of bark looks great in also a green pod. Or so you can find things that play well with different things. But at the end of the day, I'm not saying, okay, I have this Japanese maple, it has to go in this color pot.
Makes sense.
So,
Makes sense. Okay. What do you think about red pots?
Ooh, red pots. I have, you know, half dozen or dozen in the garden. They're more of a muted red, so they're more like a burgundy than like a punch you in the face kind of red. So I think for Shohin, they're 100% necessary. Like a Shohin display without a pop of color, to me, is a bad Shohin display. Like I need to see a bright red, a bright yellow, a bright blue to make that display exciting to me. And not in necessarily every display, but in a Shohin show. But for big trees, like it's harder. The bigger to the tree you get, the more you want. At least for me, the more I want the pot to be kind of secondary to the tree, not the first thing that I look at. And so I'm fine with red glazes, but as long as the color and the finish aren't too loud and flashy, and as long as the texture, like the pattern is kind of more subtle rather than like super like tie-dye looking or other things. Those are kind of things I think.
Solid. Yeah, no, everything that you said, 100%. I kind of feel one other interesting color is like I always, when I first got into bonsai, I strongly disliked yellow pots. I feel like as time has progressed, I still don't love yellow pots. However, if they have a heavy patina on them, it's more acceptable in my mind.
Yeah,
And then also, yeah, for Shohin, I
yeah,
think it works as well.
yeah. They like yellow to me doesn't look good when it's fresh. Like go over to Now's and like get a yellow pot right out of the kiln right after it's been baked. It's like, okay, it's a little much. Like it's a little loud. But then give it 10 years on the bench and it actually is quite lovely. I think for flowering and fruiting trees, yellow is pretty important. So like red and yellow work pretty well together. So you'll see a lot of Ilex dorata in Japan in yellow pots. You see a lot of Calocarpa, purple and yellow together, like we were saying. So the beauty berries in yellow pots. But I think, if you have more than 10 Japanese maples, slipping one or two of them in a yellow pot is going to be nice so that, like we said, not everything is just in green, cream, blue, repeat. If you have 10 deciduous trees, you can get away with those colors just fine. But if you have more than that, you might want to spice it up a little.
For sure.
That's
Very nice.
The difference where you're trying to like create nice variety, not just for the individual tree in the pot, but also to have a nice garden. So like you could perfectly match a cream pot to a Japanese maple tree, and you bring it to a show and it's, a winning combo. But then you come visit the garden, you don't want to see, 200 white pots or cream pots, so that's like another variable that I don't think a lot of people think about is like there's the right match for the tree, but it's also got to work in with everything else you have to make a nice visual kind of appearance in the garden.
Absolutely. Sweet. How are you doing on time, man? Maybe a couple more? Or are you want to get...
I'm good, so we can keep going as long as we want.
Cool. Okay, I just got like two more for you, I guess.
Yeah.
I was curious. So I follow the what's it called, Bonsai Society of Portland on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I'm in the group, and I see your dad posting like almost every day, and I can tell that he just has a tremendous passion for bonsai, which I think is really cool. Yeah. But what's that like? I mean, like I can't imagine my dad is not into bonsai. I mean, are you guys sitting down at the dinner table every night and like jumping into bonsai discussion?
Yeah, I'm not, because for me it's to have that kind of work-life balance. Like I'm talking about bonsai all day long when I'm working, when I'm talking to clients, when I'm traveling and teaching. So when I'm home, I just want to be like a normal person to a degree. But no, it's. I mean, he's an amazing help for me. I mean, the garden couldn't exist right now without his help, and so him being here and passionate about trees and keeping the trees watered when I'm gone allows me to do as much traveling and client work as I do. So I'm super grateful for that, and it's fun to have. He's much more interested in the small trees, and I'm much more interested in the big trees, and so he kind of lately I've kind of passed off most of the Shohin kind of work to him, since he enjoys that much more than I do at the moment, and so he's kind of holding down the fort with all the Shohin work. I'll still work on trees, those small trees every now and then, but he kind of keeps up with a lot of daily maintenance and kind of maintains that collection. So, and then most of my day-to-day studio work is the bigger trees in the garden.
Solid. Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Actually, I have two more. Sorry.
Yeah. All good.
I'm just going to keep saying two more. Anything you can share on the future Pacific Bonsai Expo, or if you can't, that's totally fine.
No, I'm very, we're a nonprofit organization. We're very open about ideas, and the main things we're very, very grateful for everybody here on the West Coast and all over North America and even worldwide. We had a crazy attendance this year. I mean, if you do one show, you can learn a lot, but I think you really start learning when you do a second show. And, it really gives you a feel for the momentum of the community. Part of the reason that I love studying kokufu is I think of kokufu like the census for the Japanese bonsai community. So when you look at all of that data year after year, you can really start to see trends. You can see the types of work that people were doing, different artists kind of come into play and then leave. And I think the expo is kind of giving us that data to kind of look at. And so if we look at the first expo to the second expo, I thought, the quality of the trees were about 20% better. And the displays and just everything, the show felt about 20% better overall than the first show. Not that the first show was bad, just that I think it's shown a little bit of growth in the community. So that was really exciting and rewarding. I think our attendance, the excitement for the expo has definitely gone up. We had about double the attendance for the second show than we did the first show. So that's an amazing experience. And kind of, it's great to see that the community appreciates all the hard work that we're kind of putting into it. And so many people are putting into it. I mean, we couldn't have the expo without hundreds of volunteers. And so it's really rewarding to see everybody chip in and either donate financially or donate with their time, or both. It's really, really rewarding. Looking forward to the third expo. There's a few things that we're thinking about. So nothing is set in stone at this point. The only thing that's set in stone is there will be a third expo. So that's the one thing that I can announce. But other than that, it's very much in flux. This is the time that we're thinking about venues. So from an organizer standpoint, the standpoint that almost nobody lives, the venue was very frustrating to deal with that we were just at. So it's hard to go back to a place of broken promises and things that didn't happen like they were supposed to, and all the baggage that kind of comes with that. But from a visitor standpoint, we only heard kind of positive things about the place. So that'll be a tough thing to kind of figure out. Timing wise, we're looking at maybe having, I think an issue between this show and the last show was it would be nice if it was a winter silhouette show for everybody, not just for us in Portland and maybe a few people in Northern California, and all of LA and mid and Southern California are kind of very much in the growing season. So I think that's one thing that we're looking at, is maybe pushing it to maybe the end of January is an idea. Again, nothing set in stone, but
I like that idea a lot. I very much like that.
Yeah. I think a lot of us like that. Now, with every decision that we make, there's always like it sets off a chain reaction of other things, right? And so, like, if we do it in the end of January, that makes any of our friends coming from across the Rockies, their life way more difficult, right? So if people are going to drive in from Colorado, if Bill Vavenis is going to drive over from Rochester, that makes it, very treacherous travel, or the potential for that. So it gets more challenging, but me being a deciduous enthusiast, I would love if every single deciduous tree in the room was kind of in winter silhouette or had the potential to be, because I think that's kind of important. So those are a few ideas. Now, it's another thing that we're kind of toying with is, I think the expo, and all of this is just talking about the actual exhibit, which is the main part that I care about. But I think there will always be kind of a traditional exhibit at the expo, but something that we're interested in is having a non-traditional exhibit as well. And I think, the second expo was more or less just kind of a larger version of the first expo. And I think for the third one, we're looking, okay, how can we really kind of flip this on its head and make it different? Now, you definitely have to appease the people that just want that familiar traditional show, right? But how do we get different artists or colleagues who are maybe less excited about that and bring them into the fold and do something a little different in a way that keeps it fresh and exciting for all of us as organizers too. Yeah, I think the third expo, there's a good chance that you're going to see something that you've never seen before, and it's going to totally blow your mind. And we don't necessarily know what that is yet, but that's something that we're eager to conceptualize and plan. So, what do you think? What would you like to see in a third expo?
Well, so I would love personally, and I didn't even think about the people coming from that side of the Rockies over here. Makes it more challenging for them. So my bad there. But definitely, I really like the completely naked deciduous thing. I just think I want to see trees like that. And I think a lot of the deciduous, maybe they didn't present as well as they could have if they didn't have their leaves. And so
100%.
I think that's a one thing that I would love to see. I guess another thing, maybe just like the avant-garde or unusual displays. I think that's a really cool concept. Maybe like an award specific to that, like for a unique display could encourage more of that.
Yeah. Yeah, something that we one of my ideas, and I'm not in no way saying this is going to happen or it's going to work, but one of the concepts that I've come up with is we have an idea called spaces. So for people who are, who think in a very artistic, not really confined by tradition kind of mindset, or maybe this is to professionals or I don't know. I don't know who gets to participate, but maybe you have this idea called spaces where, okay, I give you a 12-foot space and you do whatever you want. You bring your own backdrop, you bring your own lights, you bring your own whatever, and you just fill that space in any way. Don't fill it with just like a tree on a table like the traditional way, but any way other than that. And that's an idea that I was just up at Bonsai Mirai doing a podcast with Ryan, and him and I had chatted about that. I was like, well, what would make coming to the expo exciting for you? And that was one thing that he said. So that could be a way. Maybe we feature different bonsai professionals, maybe myself and Peter and Ryan and Todd and whoever get one of these 12 spaces, and it's kind of a way to kind of just show a little bit who we are and how we can be different. So that's one idea. Now, I think the more abstract you get, the less judging can kind of take hold, because if there's apples over there and oranges over here and cherries over here, then it's really hard to judge non-traditional displays.
For sure.
So maybe it wouldn't be a judged thing, but it could be a thing that's just kind of cool and different and shows people something they've never seen before. So that's one of probably 20 concepts we'll come up with, and we'll see what we end up working with. But that's been something I've been bringing a lot about.
Oh, love the idea. I think that would be really fun and really, really unique and creative, and I would love to see it. So that would be a fantastic idea. One other, this is like super random, but I'm going to tell you because I know you're a musician, and I just think it would be really cool. It's also just another thing to do, and so I'm sure on the priority list it's right at the bottom. But one thing I think would be just absolutely awesome is if you incorporated music somehow into the PBE. Yeah, I know that's bottom of the priority, but I could envision like if you hired a cool string quartet to play classical music while you're walking around the expo. I think that could be absolutely awesome. Or at like the awards banquet, if you had like a DJ come, you could do electronic music or any kind of music. I think I really like music, and I think that could be like a fun other category you could potentially do. Yeah,
that would be cool. I haven't thought about it in terms of the overall event. I've thought about it a lot in terms of individual displays. One of my ideas that I've had for years is like if you look at like a traditional Japanese tokonoma, and it's telling like a landscape story or whatever, or cultural story, incorporating more of the 5 sense than just sight. So having sound, having feeling like the wind at your back on a tree that's cascading off a mountainside, or having smell, like incorporating more of the five senses into that experience. I've never realized that into something yet, but that's always been one of my kind of conceptual ideas. But yeah, it'd be cool to get music overall in the venue, and that's something that I think we're kind of looking for too. Is can we have a venue that's more special? I think functionally wise, like the first venue was a lot less functional. It was like in the middle of nowhere. Parking was a little bit of an issue. But I think from an artistic side, it was a way more special venue. And so, like, I think if people with that artistic brain really loved that first venue because it had patina, it had a lot. Most people with functional normal brains love the second venue because it was just easy to get to. There's stuff all over. But yeah, it'd be cool to get music in the venue somehow. I like that. Well, I'll throw that into the mix. If you have any ideas, you could be our chief musician, musical management. It'd be fun.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. I don't know. I always love, I like classical music quite a bit, and seeing it live, like a string quartet or something, I think could just be really nice walking around the trees, and probably only for a short period of time, maybe like a couple hours or something. It'd just be like a fun little side feature while enjoying the trees. I like the idea
of doing it if we had like a special event, like the not banquet, but like the reception that we did on Friday night last time. I think it'd be perfect for something like that. Could even be cool to have like like soft music in the background, just like during the whole show. Like,
oh, for sure.
It's a bad analogy, but like grocery stores, how they always have like something a little bit. And I think there's some psychology there of keeping people moving or something. I don't know, but it could be cool to have just like faint background music too.
Totally. Awesome, man. Well, I mean, that's a minor detail, not super important. You guys are working on all the hard, important stuff right now. And I just want to say like a massive thank you to you, Jonas and Eric, because I think that you guys are doing something extremely important. And personally, I really hope that all of the bonsai community will continue to get behind it. And I think that events like this really push the community and just the overall quality of bonsai forward. So I really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for all the hard work that you did with the last expo. And so stoked for the next one.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really nice to hear. Something that Eric, Jonas, and I all felt during the last expos, we just had hundreds of people coming up and saying thank you. And that was just, I don't know, it was really nice because when you're doing all the hundreds of hours, or in the case of Eric and Jonas, maybe thousands of hours of work, like it can feel a little thankless at times when you're just, doing all the dumb stuff that requires doing for a big event like that. But it like we really did feel a gratitude when we were there. And it's like you said, like I think it's for driving overall quality for a community. I think there's nothing better than a high level show, because I mean my experience going to the Artisans Cup, made me what I am today, made my garden what it is today. Like seeing, oh crap, these are beautiful trees. I don't have anything on my bench that could get in here. Okay, I need to change. Like, okay, how do I need to find a teacher. I need to like make better purchases. I need to develop my skills more. Like I need to pivot. And so I think it's having that kind of aspirational level, and giving people like a target to aim at really does drive quality, not just in bonsai, but in pots. You have, my friend now, who's like now just crushing it to make super great expo pots, stand makers, everything. It just, the overall community is just such a great stimulus for.
100%. Cool. I'm podcasting with Now later today, actually.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
It's stoked on that. Cool. All right. Well, I guess if it's okay, I'll just hit you with one last one, and then we can wrap it up.
Sounds great.
Kind of a deep one, and I didn't give you any chance to prepare for this, and so I don't know. This may be a bad question, but my question for you is: within bonsai, what would what would you ultimately want to be remembered for someday?
I want to be remembered for bringing the spotlight on deciduous. And I think we've done a lot of work to do that, and I think we still have a lot of work to go in that regard. But, when I've been to most of the national shows, and when I went to all those shows and I went to the Arzens Cup, all the trees that were getting attention were the collected conifers. And those are beautiful trees, and I love them. But I was looking, at the Arzens Cup, for example, I was looking in this room of collected conifers. And I came across this beautiful beech at the Pacific Bonsai Museum. And I was like, someone put like 70 years of their life into this tree, or multiple people put, the accumulation of 70 years in their life on this tree. And this tree's getting like no attention, no, I don't know. It felt very overshadowed by everything else. And I think deciduous kind of gets that rap. I mean, the word for deciduous in Japanese bonsai is called zoki, not rakuyo. So rakuyo is like the literal translation. Like if you said it to a non-bonsai person, they'll understand, okay, tree that loses its leaves. But in the bonsai community, deciduous is zoki, which means miscellaneous, which is another way of saying like it's not a pine or a juniper, it's an other. And I think that kind of mentality has existed with deciduous trees for quite a while. And so I think that part of the things that has me excited about the expo is like I feel like it's the best deciduous showing in both the first two shows that I've ever seen at an American show. The show feels more balanced than I've ever seen in an American show. Not that it's perfect or that there's still work to do, but I think bringing attention and spotlight is kind of the whole point of Rakuyo is really putting that spotlight on deciduous trees and kind of embracing them in that way. If I could have 10 different realities, I would probably have lots of different types of bonsai gardens, but they would all be kind of deciduous focused in one way or another. And I think that's just kind of where my passion lies. And I think I've also resonated with a lot of people. I do deciduous only intensives, and I get people who come take my intensives from all over the country that just say, thank you. So many bonsai teachers are just talking about conifers. I finally found I found someone who's kind of talking to the things that I really care about and like. And I guess I'm just fortunate that I can have a career in bonsai that's so focused and kind of popular. I mean, when I started doing deciduous, I didn't necessarily realize how popular it was. I thought it was the underdog because at all the big shows, it was the underdog. But I think when you actually get out and feel what the community actually cares about, it's at least 50-50. And there's a lot of deciduous love out there. So it's fun to be able to put a spotlight on that, care about that, and kind of focus my whole business and portfolio work in that context.
Extraordinary, man. Love it. And you have done a fantastic job promoting deciduous, and I'm a huge fan of everything that you've done. Like I watch a lot of your videos at least twice. I listen to your podcast, everything that you're doing. It's been super fun to follow along. So great work, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremiah. I love your podcast too. Thanks for having me on. It's fun to be able to chat as always, and you make amazing trees, so it's always fun chatting with you. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.